we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. On infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections.
If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who want it until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious.
Violence and vandalism is being led by Antifa and other radical left-wing groups who are terrorizing the innocent, destroying jobs, hurting businesses, and burning down buildings. They are coming after me because I am fighting for you. That's what's happening.
Greetings, fellow thought criminals, and thank you for joining the insurrection. I'm Michael Lauer, and today I'm joined by Andrew Mahler, host of the American Made, writer at the Sentinel Report, the New American, and various other places. How are you doing this morning, Andrew?
Oh, it's good to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Michael.
Well, thanks for being here. It's Friday. We've got a lot of crazy stuff to cover, and we'll start with Andy Ogles losing the GOP primary to Charlie Hatcher, who was backed by renewable energy PACs. And there are some questions about where some of this money came from. I can get my slide thing here to cooperate. Sorry, we're having one of those mornings. Democrat crypto money just booted a Trump ally out of the Tennessee primary. So I guess this is one of Kamala Harris's giant donors, is the guy that backed Hatcher. And I got to be honest, I don't know a whole lot about Hatcher. I really didn't see this coming. I saw some polling earlier that it was close, but it still had Ogles significantly ahead. 3 to 5 points. I don't remember exactly what it was. So it wasn't something I was following real closely. When I saw this last night on my phone, I was a little surprised that he lost his primary.
Yeah, well, I'm just going to say, with as much certainty as you can, this is not an organic loss. This was a manipulated, inorganic loss. My colleague Alex Newman wrote an article on this in the New American on June 24th. The headline was "Green Billionaires Spend Big to Buy GOP Seat in Tennessee." And in the article, he double clicks into this Invest Tomorrow Coalition PAC. And the Invest Tomorrow Coalition PAC is a super PAC that is bankrolled by the, climate change, sustainable development, clean energy investors. And they have put almost $1 million, probably well over $1 million, into this primary campaign against Ogles. And Tom Matzey, the PAC's chair and CEO of Clean Choice Energy, he said this regarding the donations in war against Ogles. Quote, the plan is, this is what he said, the plan is to, quote, communicate a message to other members of Congress that if you take these extreme positions, the industry is watching. If you're an extremist on American energy, you are on our target list, end quote. That is what he said. So what does it mean to be an extremist for American energy? Well, it means you want to drill oil and have energy independence, energy sustainability through actual sources of energy, oil, gas, and coal, by and for the United States. And this PAC was, energized, motivated, directed by the sustainable development, clean energy guys, those guys who, if you drive on I-10 in Florida, have the solar panels everywhere, the guys who say you need to have an electric car, the guys who say you need to have carbon credits so that you don't fly too much because something about saving the planet. That's the group that took down Andy Ogles. They did it because with the big, beautiful bill, with other pieces of legislation, he constantly pushed back against this kind of green new scam garbage. He's a
Yeah.
constitutionalist. He has like a 93% on the New Americans Freedom Index. This was not an organic loss.
No, and this is another way to get another rhino in there. It's also about nuclear. Trump's taken down a lot of the barriers to building nuclear plants where it won't take, a decade just to get permit approval, and has rushed through and approved a number that we're waiting in that cycle anywhere between 5 and 10 years. Not to mention immediate approvals for a couple of these other new nuclear plants that are going in, either to support data centers, which that's a whole other story. We'll get into that. But it's funny too. A lot of the people that I've seen whining about this and the money were the same ones cheering it on when they dropped 35 million in to get rid of Thomas Massey. And if you talked about that, and the sources, they accuse you of being anti-Semitic or whatever else. But it's the same tactic here. You flood a bunch of money in, and you get another rhino, which I still think Galbraith or Galbright or whatever the hell his name is down there in Gowron, whatever. Yeah, this guy was a never Trumper for years. He looks like he's just another rhino, but these idiots don't look into anything except whatever the current message is. Oh, the guy was in the special forces, or we got to go vote for him. They couldn't name one policy or any part of his platform or what he was going to do when he got to Congress, and that's how we end up with another monster. And that's going to happen here too. But it's interesting too, like how easily it is to just manipulate these voters with enough cash flooding the zone. Um, but yeah, Ogles has been largely good on most issues. I can't remember too many times reporting negatively on something that he said or done. And now we'll have another, somebody to prop up the failing renewable energy industry. I mean, like here where I live, Ohio has, got problems with these wind turbines, and companies that put them up then go out of business and they get left on farmers' land. In Indiana, it's really bad. There's a whole section up, I can't remember if it's 64 or 65. I think it's 65 headed north. There's a whole section where I guess the company that put up all these towers went out of business. Now, a lot of them aren't functioning correctly or frozen or falling apart. And there's nobody to go to pay for the cleanup. And a lot of these, the danger is them falling over or catching fire. They're very difficult to maintain. A lot of, what was his name? T. Boone's Pickens lost over $1 billion on these things when he put them in Texas and a few other states a number of years back. Solar panels, they've had whole fields of them destroyed with one hailstorm, does millions and millions of dollars in damage, and then no electricity. Like, this stuff is either not ready for prime time or just not realistic. Yeah, it makes sense if you want to build a cabin out in the woods, or if you want to do it on your own to be energy independent and off the grid. That makes sense. Or maybe for a small town in rural Alaska or something like that where we can't pipe in power from another source. But this doesn't make sense on the broad spectrum for a realistic source of to meet our energy needs. It's not reliable. We all saw this in Texas. We got a little ice, and suddenly they can't get enough power in Houston and Dallas. It caused major problems. The only way this industry survives with massive government subsidies, and I guess they've got their guy up there now to vote for them.
Yeah, well, they had a gravy train going for sure, and they still do. They definitely don't want that to end. And you just have to look at like who these people are who are behind this pact. I mean, they're the people who have investments in this industry, who are benefiting directly from these big spending bills that are going through Congress that are subsidizing, clean energy. And Alex Newman and I, we go to a lot of the United Nations climate summits, right? I've gone to the last two, and I've gone to some other UN summits in the United States, but there was one in, I believe it was, I don't know if it was in Abu Dhabi or if it was in Egypt or something, but Alex went to one. I think it was COP28, perhaps. And anyway, at that event, he asked Senator Chris Coons about the climate agenda, because at the time, Donald Trump looked like he was going to win in 2024. This was during Biden. They didn't know what was going to happen, but it kind of looked like Trump was going to win. And Alex asked the question to Chris Coons. It ended up going viral. And he said, Senator Coons, with the real possibility of Donald Trump winning the election in 2024, and the growing number of polling for Americans that are becoming disenfranchised with this whole climate change, global warming agenda you guys are putting out, what's the path? Like, what's the plan for your scheme? How are you going to keep this going under a Trump admin in a second term? And Coons really kind of shared the formula. He had a leak, if you will, and he said, He said, don't worry, we are going to subsidize clean energy projects locally in congressional districts, and therefore, constituents, investors, financiers, etc., are going to have essentially an interest in those local projects, and we are going to keep the agenda alive regardless of what happens in the election. So the formula was simple. It was take the climate agenda, localize it, subsidize all these local projects for sustainability in various congressional districts. Funders, donors, constituents, lobbies, things like that will come around and protect it and safeguard it. And instead of keeping it all at the top, we will disperse the power. And I saw this at the UN COP29, their big climate summit, COP30. They said, we will get around Trump by simply waiting him out, taking this climate agenda locally, starting sustainability projects in counties, in cities, in states. They have this whole program for it. I mean, there's even organizations that exist to do this, that are, NGOs that are, subsidiaries of the United Nations that are trying to create these sustainable cities. And that is how they're going to try to work around Donald Trump pulling out of the Paris Climate Accord, congressional bills pulling funding from, sustainable projects, that kind of stuff. They're taking it local. And this loss of Andy Ogles is a puzzle piece in that design that Chris Coons laid out.
Yeah, and like I've said this before, but if it actually worked, if these things actually generated energy and did not have to be subsidized like they did, I wouldn't care. Even if it was low yield compared to a coal or gas or nuclear power plant, if they were at least able to support themselves, if they were at least self-sustaining and didn't rely on reaching into your wallet to keep this lie going, to perpetuate this fantasy that the left's embraced, I really wouldn't care. But the problem is it doesn't do that. It just costs all of us more money, and then localizing it just means that your local taxes are going to go up. They're going to fund people's races and then buy off their votes so that they will reach into your wallet at the local level. You'll get a levy for putting up or sustaining the windmills in your area or putting up new solar fields. You're going to pay for it, and your electric costs are going to go up. And that's the other problem with all these is they don't supply energy consistently the way a normal power plant does. Obviously solar only works during the day when the sun's up. Well, I guess until they put mirrors in space or do something like that. And don't worry, that's coming too. And same with the windmills. The maintenance cost is so high, especially in northern areas like or anywhere where you get snow and ice, where they have to be de-iced, where they have to fly a helicopter up and spray off the blades so that they don't go flying off because they come unbalanced once they're covered like that. But anyway, yeah, it just doesn't work. But let's check in on some other Democrat races. Let's see what else is going on around the country. Oh, down in Hawaii, Democrat congressional candidates picks a fight, gets knocked out immediately. Well, this guy's got a giant rap sheet. I guess he's pulled a gun on somebody before, made numerous other threats, but this is the best they have to offer in Hawaii. I don't know if he's out of jail yet, but he did get laid out after, somebody asked him to turn his music down. He told them to F off, threatened them, I guess pulled a knife, and then somebody else stepped in and cleaned his clock, took the knife, threw it out in the ocean, and then the police arrived and arrested him. Let's see what else we got. Maine Democrats explain they can either do no rape or no incest, but not both. And actually, I think the other guy's got rape allegations as well. But again, not exactly the cream of the crop coming up for the Maine Democrat field. Apparently had a relationship with his cousin or second cousin or whatever. But that's okay. I guess that's better than having a Nazi tattoo on your chest. Then we got James Talrico. Apparently, he's headlined a gay pride event alongside an 11-year-old drag queen. So Texas, I don't know how this guy is so close in the polls to Ken Paxton. I know he's doing the best to rebrand himself. And once again, you have a lot of your local and national media going along with it, just pretending this guy's past doesn't exist. They ignore all the other insane things he's said. And I guess there's enough voters in Texas that are just too stupid and are buying into it. Then we got Abdul Sayed here, who just won in Michigan. Well, we'll get to that in a second. A third of Democrats are now calling themselves socialists. Now, officially, this guy is not a DSA. He's been very clear. However, his policies all align with that, and the DSA was helping to prop up his campaign.
Yeah. Well, first of all, valid crash out about playing music too loud at the beach. You would join somebody in that crash out. I hate it. I live in
Yes.
Florida. There are times where there are, some Mexican folks down there playing their music, and it's just absolutely unbearable. And same with the white girls or whoever. It's not good. If you're not playing my style music, don't play it at all. Everyone
Right.
knows the rules. But yeah, the Democrats are kind of having this moment where, and I was talking about this on a radio show yesterday morning. People say the Democrats are eating themselves alive, and there's a truth to that. But the bottom line is that things will get much worse before they get better, right? I don't think the Democrat Party is going to fall apart anytime soon. They're
No.
definitely on the track to kind of doing that in some sort of an end game situation. But you have to consider that you have young people and minorities kind of the base of the Democrats right now, right? You kind of
Yes.
got the indoctrinated boomers. You've got the young people, some of the young people for sure, not all of them, but you got that, and then you kind of got the minority group there, and they all have in common one thing, and that is indoctrination, right? They went through government schools. They think America was founded by white colonizers who are racist, misogynist pigs. Their capital's blood needs to run in the street, et cetera, et cetera. We've all heard it, right? So,
Yep.
so that's the understanding. And you have that coupled with actual immediate needs, right? So there is an affordability crisis. There are $20 burritos, right? Dan Crenshaw had a very insane take on that. I don't know if anyone followed the burrito debate, but some
Yes.
people online were saying, "Hey, there's the $20 burritos out there in fast food places," and Dan Crenshaw, a little pirate from Texas, he's like, "Oh, well, just eat ramen and work harder. That's what I did in college." And it's like, okay, you don't get it. We're talking about inflation. We're talking about the Federal Reserve and the government inflating our dollar. Different story.
Yeah.
So anyway, you have with the Democrat constituents an indoctrinated base, and they also have legitimate needs, right? And the legitimate needs are they were told to go to college, to get their degree in whatever studies, and that everything would work out fine for them, and they'd become an art curator at the Smithsonian and make tons of money and have an amazing apartment in Washington D.C. or New York with all their plants and their cats, and it would be amazing, and it would be like
Yep.
a movie. And the reality is that's not true. They got their degree, they're in student loan debt, they can't afford their Volkswagen Jetta payments. They can't afford a $3,000 apartment, which is fairly normal nowadays. And they're like broke, right? So they're in debt, they're broke, they're using payment plans for fast food and DoorDash. So they're desperate, they're angry, and they're indoctrinated, and that's a very dangerous mix of things.
Yeah.
And the point I'm trying to make, all that to say, is that like Zoran Mamdani, right? People think, well, Zoran is going to fail, Karen Bass, these people are going to fail, and then everyone will see that the Democrats don't work. It's going to all collapse on them, and they're going to fall apart, and everyone's going to become a conservative Republican. And I don't think that's real at all because of everything
No.
I just said. What's going to happen is they're going to just turn on those people. They're going to say, well, Zoran couldn't do it because he was trying to play nice within the system. He was trying to play nice within the law and change things from the inside out. What we need is somebody who will actually deliver on what Zoran Mamdani promised by getting militant. We have to go and take. We have to go and plunder if we actually want to, eat the rich or tax the rich. They're not going to do it within the confines of the matrix or the system. We have to
Yeah.
do it with our own hands. So it's just going to get more and more radical. It's going to get more and more extreme. And ultimately it will, end up in some sort of a big explosion, politically speaking. But I don't think the Democrats are cooked quite yet. I think that the actual failure of these candidates is going to drive the needle not towards the Republican Party, but actually towards a more extremist radical left that's going to become militant.
Absolutely. Because, yeah, they are not going to blame themselves or take any type of responsibility for their policies. They will double down on it. It'll be somehow they will find a way to blame the right for Mandani's and their others' failures, even though it's obvious that it's going to be laid directly at their feet. And this is part of the problem with the left. The media will go along with it, too. But there is no way some of them will. Some Democrat voters will realize, hey, my degree in grievance studies is not able to get me a job, whereas my former friend from high school that's a plumber now is living in a fantastic house, has 3 cars, and is making $250,000 a year. Some of them will wake up to that reality and make a change, but the vast majority won't. They will double down. It's hard for people to accept any level of responsibility today. I mean, it's one of our big issues is the lack of personal responsibility, especially for bad decisions. So when Mamdami's grocery stores collapse and fail, which again, I love this story about how, you have to present ID there, but not to vote, but you have to have one to go buy groceries in New York if you want that 30% discount. The mental disconnect with these people is unbelievable already, so it's not going to improve. Not to mention, I don't for a minute believe. Well, actually, let's go ahead and we'll bring up our next story here because I believe parts of this, but not for the same reasons. Clinton pollster Mark Penn explains how easy it will be for Abdul El Sayed to lose Michigan in general election. Now, part of the reasoning behind this is they're saying, well, he's just too radical. He's a socialist. Michigan's not like New York and other places. And I do kind of agree with him there. I do think that's going to peel off a certain number of blue dog Democrats that are going to just not vote for him or vote Republican. But I don't think this is going to be the same throughout a lot of other states. As someone else was pointing out, Michigan's voting base is older, or Democrat voting base is much older than it is in New York. So some of them do remember when Democrats still had some level of common sense and weren't full-on commies. However, I think the vast majority of Democrats, like even when I've talked to people around here that I know, they'll hold their nose and vote for a bad candidate much more often than a Republican will. They will, vote blue no matter who. This holds true. That's how we end up with a lot of these people, and they will go out in the general because, it's better than somebody that'll support Orange Hitler, and that's how you end up with people like that. So to your point, I don't know. I think the socialists and the DSA will be taking over the Democrat Party. I really don't think there's going to be blowback or a massive loss of votes. I think most of the people that saw what was going on with the Democrat Party, with all the trans stuff and, being wedded to this environmental nonsense, whatever, most of those people have already left. They came over in 2016, 2020, and 2024. I've talked about my neighbor before, lifelong, one of my other neighbors, lifelong, not the neighbor I usually talk about. One of my other neighbors, lifelong Democrat. He's in the Navy. He's a college professor, all this stuff. But when it came to a choice between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, he already knew Hillary Clinton was evil, so he voted for Donald Trump. There's people like that woke up before and left the Democrat Party. I just don't think there's that many there left to leave. I'm sure it will be a small number that the DSA candidates are finally the line too far. But otherwise, I just don't see it.
No, I agree wholeheartedly, and I think they're going to implode. And this is why the Republican Party has a great opportunity. The Republican Party can take this moment of the Democrats falling in on each other, becoming DSA. And I do have to say this. The John Birch Society, founded in 1958, one of the original anti-communist organization. I actually have a sticker here we just created. Christian Anti-Communist has the JBS on it.
Oh, that's awesome.
We predicted this like forever ago. We said that the Democrat Party and the Uniparty in Washington, D.C. was socialist, that they were communists. And people said we were crazy, that McCarthy went too far, that, looking for communists under every rock was a crazy conspiracy theory. And yet now you have one of the major political parties in the United States basically becoming all out communist by title. So I do have to say that none dare call it conspiracy, and yet here we are. So there's that. But the Republican Party has a great opportunity here to look at this radicalizing of the Democrats, the mask slipping. It's not even slipping, it's being intentionally removed. And they could look at that and say, hey, we have a real solution, a viable solution for you guys, which is less government, more responsibility, and with God's help, a better world and a better country. To borrow the John Birch Society motto, but that is what they could do. And they could say, hey, you want to know why a burrito's $20? It's because of the Federal Reserve. And they're going to have to eat some crow, right? Because Republicans have been a part of this problem. They were a part of, the ascension of the Federal Reserve and the administrative state and all these different things. But they can repent of that. And
Yes.
they can offer a new path and say, hey, you guys on the left and the right don't like surveillance. Neither do we. You guys don't like that a burrito costs you $20 and you get watched by 10 flock cameras on your way to pick it up. Neither do we. And create this coalition of people surrounding around one subject, which is limited government, right?
Yeah.
More liberty, more choice for you, less government. And if the GOP would pitch that and actually educate people and say, this is why, excuse me, you are facing these, troubles, and here's what we can do about it, they could win. But instead, the GOP is literally, criticizing people. Dan Crenshaw, Ben Shapiro, all these people criticizing young people for saying like, hey, why can't I afford things? I'm working my butt off. I went to college. I did exactly what you guys told me to, and I can't live a life. Instead, it's, hey, you know what? Or you want to be a winner or you want to be a whiner? Why don't you shut up and work harder? Why don't you eat ramen and drink Powerade, in a group house and just work hard rather than complain that you make $60,000 a year and yet can't afford anything? That's the message from the GOP right now. It's go work at the pull yourself up by the bootstrap factory instead of, hey, we actually made a mistake. And unless and until they humble themselves and admit the mistakes that the GOP has made, but then offer a sustainable path to this affordability crisis, the Democrats are going to continue to ascend. So the GOP has a great opportunity here. Will they take it? That's yet to be seen. And honestly, people are going to hate me in the comments. That's fine. But you want to know who's one of the only people who's effectively talking about this that's like upper echelons? Tucker Carlson. He's like one of the only guys who's actually giving this any sort of credence and time of day. And Charlie Kirk was with Tucker months before he died. That was another guy who was also doing it. So I think the GOP would do well to listen.
Yeah. And I think embracing that message and shifting the conversation would serve them well, especially considering all the other failings in government right now that we can lay right at the feet of the Republicans in the House and even the Trump administration. We're still not getting anybody arrested. Most people are not happy with the level of deportations. They want that to greatly expand. They certainly don't want to go the route these 49 in the House want to, of amnesty of any kind. This doesn't resonate with the base. But if you at least got behind, ending this flock mass surveillance or restricting the data centers, we're going to get more to this in a minute. But instead, we have the opposite message, especially from a lot of these big entities that fund the GOP and their big donors. That they've made investments in these data centers and other things. They don't want anything to change there. They don't want any legislation that'll make it more difficult or force them to pay for electrical consumption or water or whatever. They don't want anything to interfere with that could cost them money, and that people see through it. And this is the big problem they have right now: is apathy. The voters are both apathetic and frustrated with what they see from the right, and they certainly don't want to go anywhere near the left. But that means they can just sit home and not do anything, and that's what we're already seeing in the primaries, with a decrease, state to state, of 20 to 30% lower turnout for the GOP than we should have right now. Like, that should be a big warning of things to come, and that's how we end up with stuff like this, where Andy Ogles loses his seat, a real conservative. And I bet a lot of it is because people stayed home and sat on their hands because they're frustrated with what's going on in Washington. But it's, like I said, and like you said, it's the messaging too, and it's not being in the right place or offering real solutions to these issues. Because as you said, a lot of people don't like Tucker Carlson, or they think, oh my gosh, we have a third party that's just going to cost J.D. Vance the next election. Oh well. You know what? I would prefer them to kind of do like the DSA and run within the Republican Party, even if it was just to shift the message there, come up with a good candidate, have them run, force J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio to address some of their concerns. Why is it we still don't have a lot of the things that we voted for, and that the Trump administration still doesn't appear to be doing much of anything about, like, arresting people? But I don't know. Something's going to have to be done. I'm very concerned with the upcoming election. I know the polling keeps going back and forth. It really is on a knife's edge right now of who will hold the House. The Democrats taking the Senate, like I keep saying, is a freaking pipe dream, especially with Abdul Sayed. That basically consider that a pickup seat. And it looks like we have at least one other pickup seat for the Republicans, and I don't see any that are really shifting into the Democrats' favor. Even Talrico and Paxton down in Texas, I don't think Talrico is going to win, even if there are some polls that show him ahead right now. He was behind by a mile just a couple of weeks ago, so I don't know if these are bad polls, or if they've been able to bamboozle enough voters in Texas. But regardless, I don't think they're picking up that seat. Let's go over to the Republican side, because the cocaine turtle, Mitch McConnell, apparently he is finally out of the hospital, back at home after nearly 2 months in hospital care. Again, this guy should resign. I guess we're already past the deadline, so he couldn't have been replaced through an election to fill the remainder of his term. It would have gone to the governor, Bashir, to appoint someone, and he'd made it clear he was going to appoint a Democrat. So hopefully this guy's actually alive. I don't know. I haven't actually seen any video of him yet emerging from the hospital. Have you?
No, I have not. That picture is 100% real, by the way. It's not AI.
Yes.
Anybody who says this AI is a conspiracy theorist, that's a 100% real photo.
Yes.
Yeah, the wristband, all that stuff, 100%.
That's what he looks like when he's not in a suit.
That's right. Yeah, and the transition from turtle to man is really good. So, McConnell, in my opinion, I think he is brain dead. That's what I think. I think he's brain dead. I think that they're scared that if Mitch McConnell was actually removed from his office for inability to serve, that perhaps you'd maybe have Thomas Massey run in that election in Kentucky and replace Mitch McConnell, which would kind of stoke a fire and poke a fire that the GOP doesn't want right now. So they're kind of keeping Mitch alive for the time being. Maybe they're giving him a little of the Biden juice. Staffers are doing the rest of the work, right? That is my guess. There's no way that this guy is remote working and doing just fine. And don't worry, he's got all of his wits about him. Like, absolutely no way that's happening. And I think that they're shielding him. They're giving him the Biden treatment. And you notice how similar it is to Biden. That it's nice statements, kind of staged photos, that kind of thing. Hoping people forget. Out of sight, out of mind. That is what I think they're doing to McConnell. And it very well could be by the same people that were screwing over Biden.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. And I wouldn't be surprised they're giving him how was it put? Now I can't remember the term, but I'm not sure if they were giving him the Biden juice, but I expect to see it. I agree with you. I think this guy's either got some Dane Bramage going on. He's not functional at this point. Because how hard would it have been, especially after, his friend Lindsey Graham passed away? How hard would it have been for him to call in to CNN or even Fox and just say a few words about his colleague there? Nobody would have, had anything negative to say about that, because, everybody knows they were friends. They worked on legislation together. They served together a long time. It would have both been a nice gesture for Lindsey Graham and his family and for the country. And it would have been proof of life that everybody wants, rather than these stories about 20-minute phone calls, which are freaking hysterical. But I don't know. We'll see. Maybe we'll get a video of him. Maybe we'll get a real one, not a doctored photo put out by Elaine Chao to prove he's alive. Well, we got more evidence of voter fraud. New evidence further undermines claim that the 2020 election was most secure in history. So this is a great article. It's up on Just the News. If you guys want to check it out, they've really been following this story as the White House has released more documents regarding 2020 election interference from China having voter rolls. But wouldn't you know it, Maricopa County, 660,000 voter ID files were lost, and this was prior to the election in 2020, but guess what? The FBI kept it hidden from both the president and from the American public that there was clear evidence of interference in the election in Arizona in 2020. I still want to know where these 30,000 ballots just magically materialized to from when they left Maricopa County, the county center, and went to Runbeck for counting. But, I guess that's a whole nother story. But this also goes back to my same point earlier. Why has no one been arrested yet? We heard they have over 80 indictments in Fulton County, Georgia, for people with illegal activity related to the 2020 election. I haven't seen one arrest. I haven't seen one thing on, no big news conference on TV. They should be hauling these people in handcuffs. They should be getting information from them further up the chain. That doesn't mean all 80 necessarily need to end up in jail. Some of them are just useful idiots. I would still like to see them in jail if they participated in any way in undermining the will of the people. But I'm interested in whoever orchestrated this at the top. We need to know exactly what happened, and we need to change things so it can't happen again. But, once again, the mainstream media will ignore this aspect of the story. They will do their best.
Of course. And, they ignored President Trump's address that he gave a few weeks ago, which, everyone thought that was going to be huge. Hardly anyone even talked about it, even on the
Yeah.
right. And I think the delivery of it could have been a lot better. But yeah, it's one of those issues that, I think people are a little tired of hearing about, but they shouldn't be. It's the bottom line is, as we've all heard many, many times, if you don't have secure elections, you don't have a country.
Yeah.
And there is just so much evidence that has come out that has shown that there are, a plethora of reasons to believe that our elections are not secure, that they are, in fact, compromised, and that if anybody has a shot at winning, they have to literally win by a margin so large that the cheating would be just too obvious to overcome it. So we have to get to the bottom of this. I think that the states and the local municipalities really need to get their act together. If you're watching about this and you're watching the show and you've been complaining about election integrity for the last 6+ years, and yet you haven't done anything with being a poll watcher or some sort of an election judge, you should probably look in the mirror and consider that. And people would say, well, have I done that? And the answer to that is, yeah, I've been a part of my Florida Young Republicans group. We've had directors of elections in, we've educated people on that, we've equipped them to do it. So I'm practicing what I preach here. But you have to get involved in that local election process. We have to get election judges and election supervisors at the county level, the state levels, to be able to buy into election integrity and security. Because even if you do pass the SAVE Act, or things like that, you're going to have local enforcement of it. There's just no way around it because voting's a local endeavor. So
Yeah.
that is just a hurdle you have to jump across.
Agreed. Something has to be done about this, and like in my opinion, at this point, with just with the evidence we've already been presented with China having all these voter ID files for over 200 million Americans. I can't remember what the exact number was now, but this is names, addresses, dates of birth, in some cases, social security numbers, depending on what state's files and the source they got them through. This means that they could be collecting mail-in ballots. There's all sorts of suspicious activity to say that somebody was voting for different people. Not to mention, as we had some guests on a few weeks ago from what was the name of their organization? But they found voter files in Illinois, suggesting nearly 15% were phantom voters, were people that didn't exist, where names, addresses, and birth dates did not match. They found a huge percentage, I think almost 14% in Texas. So something's going on. In my opinion, we need to delete all the voter rolls in all 50 states and all our territories. Everything needs to start from scratch in this coming election. Everybody should have to register to vote again to prove that they are a U.S. citizen, and we need to start from scratch. Really, what we need to do also is go back to paper ballots, hand counted, and get rid of the machines. They already do not meet the legal requirements. Most of them have cell phone chips in them, if not all of them, which means they already do not meet the size requirements. And it's time to just do something about it. The media is going to cover this. There's people benefiting from the fraud. I've heard that there's at least 6 senators that they're in there illegally. I think both the ones from Georgia are, that they didn't win their elections. I'm really curious on who the other 4 are. But do something about it. Put up or shut up. Even if you have new evidence, that's great. This is confirmation of what a lot of us have thought for a while, but people are tired of hearing about it. Same with this SAVE Act. This seems like a minimal effort to get things done. We got this story. Mike Lee says the Save America Act is moving in a very favorable direction. Senate GOP now debating how to advance the election security measure. Honestly, I don't know that they're going to get it through. I have a feeling that last second, some other wackaloon uniparty rhino is going to pop up to block it if it looks like they finally have enough votes or have figured out a path to maneuver it through the Senate rules without ending the filibuster. I just don't understand why we have so many yellow-bellied, pickle-kissing losers on our side that block these efforts when you have Democrats out there. I've lost track of how many now, because you've had a few more join the party say that, oh, if we get in, we're going to pack the Supreme Court and we're going to end the filibuster and we're going to ram our agenda through. They are telling us exactly what they're going to do. John Thune knows this, so do the rest of them, but we've got too many undocumented Democrats amongst our ranks, and that's why we have to, in 2028, this has to be our top priority, even more so than winning the presidency, I think, is primarying and removing these rhinos on the right. You can't keep asking people to hold their nose and vote for somebody that sold us out, wants amnesty for illegal aliens, doesn't want to go after the Democrats, wants to just go back to business as usual. I have had it with these people. If there is not a revolution within our own party, we are going to lose this country.
Yeah, exactly. And, on that third party topic, because you kind of hinted at there at the end, to revolution our own party, I was just at the Young Americans for Liberty convention. I was talking with young people, this idea of a third party. And ultimately, I don't think it's going to happen. Like when Tucker and these guys talk about that, I think it's more of, kind of getting the message out there, putting the feet to the fire.
Yeah.
But, ultimately, we have to have a revolution within the GOP. And people say, well, that's not possible. Well, look at what the GOP was 10 years ago before Donald Trump. There was a revolution in the GOP. It was called Donald Trump, Make America Great Again. It changed the party. There's a revolution within the Democrat Party. Look at the Democrat Party in the 1960s, the 1970s. Look at the policy platforms. Look at the golden children of the Democrats in the 60s and 70s compared to now. They had a revolution within the party. So it's easy to change parties. It happens all the time. There's no political party in the United States, Republican or Democrat, that stayed the same throughout the course. They've always changed, and radically so. So we need to do is have a revolution within the GOP that's America first. And I think that it's really easy to identify that. It's deporting 20 million people, illegal aliens, securing the border, which we've already done. So that's the first thing, making America for Americans. It's fixing the dollar, fixing the economy, getting back to some sort of a gold-backed standard, destroying the Fed. And it's limiting the size and scope of government, which is going to take care of your foreign war problems, your Palantir problems, all that stuff. And if the GOP can rally around that message in a truly America first, nationalist Christian ethos, I think that we have a shot at victory. But it's going to take some people with courage. And it's also going to take some people who are willing to turn down money from APAC and other organizations that would otherwise have donated.
Yeah. Well, you've got a great article up on this right now. Gen Z clash with Vivek Ramaswamy demands America First policies at major youth conference. So this is the conference you're just talking about right here in Cincinnati, where, Vivek bumped up against reality. And you and I were just talking the other day. He also appears to be moderating his position on some of this stuff, at least on the data centers, now actually laying out what I think is a good framework. It's at least a start. He addressed a lot of the issues in his moderation that basically was telling people, shut up and suck it. We're going to build these data centers no matter what. You guys are just out of touch with where we need to be right now. But in reality, it's him. It's a lot of the people running right now that are out of touch, and that's what's going to screw them. On one hand, they have to answer to the money gods that fund their races, but that they are out of sync with the American voter. People do not want these things in their backyard. Here in Ohio, it's already created problems, as we talked about on here before, like Annie Cyrus. Her utility rates, her electrical rates have nearly doubled because they put a bunch of these things in Fairfield near where she lives. In Columbus, they've had same problem with spiking utility rates. Other places, it's tax abatement. Everybody saw the story down in Georgia where they drank the water of a town of 30,000 people, drank over 30 million gallons of water, which caused the city itself or the town itself to run dry. These things are creating massive problems in a lot of areas. And that's just one side of the coin. The flock surveillance is another. But here, I want to play this video you have too, and then tell us what's going on here. And sorry, guys, I don't know why the audio isn't playing. Let me try this one more time. Having some technical difficulties.
Please welcome to the stage, Vivek Ramaswamy.
What's going on, guys? So we have a discussion tonight where usually what you do in a speech like this, political speech like in a lot of, tell the audience what they want to hear, they all clap, you tell them more what they want to hear, and then you all go home. Yeah, it's pretty boring. We do things a little differently tonight. If you care about somebody, you tell them the truth. If you care about yourself, you tell them what they want to hear. I'll give you the truth.
Americans are too dumb.
The real divide. The real divide.
What about Israel? Traitor! Israel,
This is what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about the real divide in the country. It's now Republicans and Democrats. It is between. Do you want to give the speech about Israel tonight? Because I care about that. Well, you get on when they give you a slot, all right?
All right, if you guys want to get the rest of that, go to Andrew's Twitter account. There's about another minute or so to go. Basically, him just getting heckled on stage. But go ahead, explain what was going on here.
Yeah, so this was at the Young Americans for Liberty 17th annual convention, YALCON, in Cincinnati, Ohio. And there you saw Vivek Ramaswamy getting idea-mogged in the public square of opinion. It was unfortunate. It's supposed to be kind of a routine campaign stop for the GOP gubernatorial hopeful and 2024 presidential failure. But it ended up being what you just saw. And the video also doesn't totally do it justice, right? Because I just had a little lapel mic that I was wearing that caught the room noise, but it was far more visceral. It was far more feral was the word I used when I walked out of the room than it appears. And I do think it's worth giving a little context to this because it's not just some random story of a politician getting booed off stage. So what? Who cares? Happens all the time. But what's interesting about this story is it's representative of a bigger problem. So Vivek was very promising. He was kind of like the Anakin Skywalker, right? It's like you were supposed to be the chosen one. You had so much promise. Like in 2024, Vivek had a lot of potential. He was talking about truths. Actually, I think look at that. He was talking about truths. He was talking about the pillars of the future of America first. It was so encouraging. And he was so articulate. He would go and do these campaign events at a state fair or wherever, and he would talk to people and he would let them listen. And it was kind of like a founding father meets Charlie Kirk meets a minority. It was like this just perfect amalgamation. And he was a Republican, and there was so much potential. So that was that, right? But he didn't have a shot at beating Donald Trump in 2024. Nobody did. So he ended up getting put on the Doge topic. It was going to be Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. They were going to co-run Doge. And that was really Vivek's launching pad, right? It was going to be Doge. Then it was maybe going to be one term as a Ohio governor, then president, right? That was like the arc that he was kind of planning. That was the path. So all that was going to work out just fine. And he very well may have been successful until December of 2024, when he did a little something called the Christmas Crash Out. And for those who aren't familiar with the Christmas Crash Out, it was about a 6-paragraph or 7-paragraph missive about why Americans suck. And it was, you watch too much sports, you pay too much attention to Saved by the Bell, you're, hanging out with your family and doing Americana too much. And instead, foreigners are, doing spelling bees and working on the STEM fair and being geeks. And therefore, they are excelling and you are not. Because you, American, you, Mr. and Mrs. USA, are contributing to a culture of mediocrity. And it's not anybody else's fault other than yours that you can't afford a house, that you can't achieve the American dream, etc. That post got like almost 200 million impressions. It cost Vivek his seat on the Doge platform. And he ended up launching a campaign preemptively for Ohio governor, which he's been running for the last 2 years, which is very unusual. So he's totally crashed and burned. He's never apologized. He's never blocked any of that back. In fact, he's doubled down. And in this speech he gave at YALCON, which was supposed to be a 30-minute speech with potentially Q&A, only lasted 14 minutes. He ran off stage because he couldn't handle it. He said repeatedly, it's not the foreigners' fault. It's not the Jews' fault. It's not the governor's or the government's fault. It's your fault. It's you guys sitting in this room. It's your fault for why the country is in the state it is. It's your fault that you can't afford anything. And he even said, my generation's going to be fine. We've made it. We're set. It's you guys who are going to have to pay the price. So quit being whiners, start being winners, vote harder, work harder, get more jobs, etc., and quit looking to other people to push the blame. And the fundamental problem with that reasoning is these kids aren't whiners. This group of students were student activists from college and high school campuses who were invited to this event. They're getting involved in politics at the local level. They're the cream of the crop. They're the top 1-2%. And they are working their butts off. They come from middle-class families across the United States of America that have worked hard, that built this country, unlike Vivek, who just got here, relatively speaking, and his family. And he's lecturing 6th, 7th generation Americans about being lazy, and he neglects to address the Federal Reserve, the mass migration crisis, the government overspending, the foreign wars, the military industrial complex, all these issues that have amalgamated and created this system that is against Mr. and Mrs. America. And he refuses to acknowledge that system. He refuses to acknowledge those systemic problems. He refuses to acknowledge government spending that's unconstitutional, departments that are unconstitutional, the Federal Reserve, too much illegal and legal immigration. And instead he says, you guys are whiners and you need to start being winners. And that is the problem within the GOP. That is the problem. And Vivek is a representative of that. And he got absolutely destroyed as a result of it.
Well, yeah. I mean, there is some limited truth in what he said in the Christmas crash out, but it's not in the way he's portraying it. There are people that spend too much time on sports ball and other distractions that don't take things seriously. But that's not the underlying part of the problem. It isn't just Americans. I do agree that there are a lot of people that come here. Well, previously, not since the Biden open borders wave, but previously, you did get a higher percentage of people that were the best of the best from whatever country they came from, that were here because they wanted to assimilate, become Americans. They were here for opportunity, and they were going to take advantage of it. But that's not what we see today. Now it's just open border future welfare recipients. But this is the thing, like coming back and backing down on the message, saying, you know what, make whatever excuse you want, but also, back up some of what you said. I think people would have been fine with that. But the problem is, too, it's his other messaging here in Ohio, and that's why he's neck and neck with Amy Acton, who would be a disaster. But I mean, I know a lot of people that just don't want to vote for him because of his position on H-1B visas or, as we already said, data centers and the rest of this nonsense. You got to moderate those positions. You've got to change those positions. I don't know if you can do that now, but it's very clear Americans want to essentially end the H-1B program. Or maybe we should actually use it as intended. Instead of having nearly 1 million people here on H-1B visas, it should probably be somewhere like 25 to 50,000. Because let's be real, there are a very small number of jobs that we lack Americans with the proper training for. Some in mostly in the medical field, but there are a few other highly specialized roles that we just straight up don't have people graduating with college from the skills. I like Trump's idea of having a $100,000 fee per year on every H-1B visa. I know he just talked about doing something else similar to that. But I think that would be a great idea. Make sure that if a company is forced to use an H-1B visa program or visa candidate, for lack of a better term, that it is not in their financial interest to do so, that they are doing it out of absolute desperation because they really, 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 really need a robotics engineer or whatever, and they just can't find one. And then you take that $100,000, I say we put half of it towards our national debt. The other half should go into some sort of a program. Like, if we're really short these people and we don't have Americans that can do that job, maybe that's one of the few times I'd be in favor of like an educational grant for somebody that wants to go directly into that field. Incentivize it somehow so we can get out of that hole and we don't need foreign labor from India or China or wherever else. But that's just my thoughts on the matter. But this is true on a lot of issues. Let me go ahead and pull up our next slide because Yeah, Americans are sick of the H-1B program. Inspector General slams H-1B program. Not just fraud, it's a criminal enterprise. And that is what it's turning into. We see a lot of these
Yep.
companies. I've seen several stories this year where a company's bought out by owners from India, and then suddenly they're firing all the Americans that work there and bringing over all their friends from India or Pakistan or China or wherever on H-1B visas. And I'm not just talking like programmers or whatever. It's janitors, it's receptionists. It's absolutely ridiculous when you go through this. It is fraud. It ought to be treated as a criminal enterprise. And all these people doing it, their companies should be stripped of it, fined, and if possible, deport the person that's doing it, especially if they were here either, even if they were a U.S. citizen now, if they were given citizenship and they are abusing the H-1B program, they should be stripped of their citizenship and sent back to wherever they came from, and they can take their family with them.
Yeah, and it's so true. It has become a criminal enterprise. It just has, and it makes sense, right? You get these people who come over to the United States. They're obviously in a position that's kind of compromised, right? They want to come here. They're not a citizen. They want to work. So as an employer, you have basically the upper hand over them because you can, pay them less. There have been many instances of kind of, threatening situations with these H-1Bs with the employers. It's not all happy roses as people make it out to be.
Yeah.
And you basically had companies like Amazon and other big ones that are hiring H-1B visas to do like warehouse work, to
Yeah.
do like stuff that Americans should and could be able to do. And yet they're hiring these H-1Bs not because they all have a specific skill set or a specific, CV that Americans don't have. It's because they're cheaper and they are easier to control than the American. That's just the sad reality of it. So, am I against special labor programs for certain people who have skills that we need and don't have enough of those folks for certain select jobs? Yeah, in theory, I'm not opposed to that. But the H-1B visa system has not reflected that sort of situation
Bingo.
in a very, very long time. And I think that it does need to be cut off. I would be okay with it being destroyed, frankly, and maybe some other sort of iteration of it coming in.
Yeah.
But the Democrat and even the neocon argument behind this is kind of sad because it's like, well, if you get rid of these foreigners, who's going to pick the cucumbers, right? Who's going to pick the cotton? Who's going to move our Amazon boxes? This, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And it's a very kind of discouraging, cynical take because it's like, well, we need these minority folk to come and do the work we don't want to do. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, is this like 1850 or something? But that's the argument. And instead I say, no, why don't they go and try to get good work in their country and Americans try to get good work in our country? If you have a system in the United States where everything that we are doing is being built by foreign hands, like where's the investment from the American people in these projects?
Yep.
You go back and you look at Dow Chemical or Fred Weber Construction or all these companies, companies that built the highways, built the railroads. There was a real kind of like civilizational identity in these things. You look at the skyline, you look at the interstate, you'd be like, man, my dad built that. I built that. My grandpa built that. Like it was a part of our birthright, a part of our culture. And now you go and look at an Amazon facility and it's like, am I in New Delhi or Kathmandu or am I in, Tampa, Florida? It's like you
Yeah.
don't know what's going on. There's no cultural buy-in. There's no legacy. And I think that is a big part of the crisis we face today.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. And you're right. These programs are clearly being abused. I think totally abandoning it is probably a good idea, and then redoing it under something else. Make companies actually prove there is a totally legitimate need for them to hire even one foreign worker for any position whatsoever. That instead of letting them fraud their way through the system, as we've covered before, where they'll put an ad in a non-English local newspaper that gets to 200 people, and they'll pretend somehow that meets the requirement for posting the job for 3 months or whatever exactly it was. Again, I can't remember now. We have to end this fraud. We have to punish the people that are perpetrating it on us. Unless this is a highly specialized role where you literally cannot find an American or can't within a reasonable length of time that they just can't find somebody with that, I don't know, chemical whatever background or whatever it is that nobody for you, because these 49 Republicans that want to like, oh, well, we just need to either do amnesty or some kind of program for the poor farm workers. Wham, 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 wham. There it wasn't even 24 hours. They're like, well, we also should expand that to, workers in factories or people that are working in our warehouses. It's going to end up mass amnesty, and they all know it. But there are special interests paying them off, I'm sure, or making deals or promises behind the scenes to get that vote. But it is, again, it's destructive. It suppresses American wages. We have to put America first. We have to start being an actual country again and looking out for our own interests and booting out all the foreigners. Anybody that is not here illegally or was let in during the Biden wave, sorry, you guys all got to go. And then I think we need to end all immigration with a few rare exceptions. We can have, it's under 10,000, legitimate asylum cases for people that are being chased out of their own country or under threat of death or whatever. We come up with something reasonable there for a small number. And otherwise, shut it all down. No more. We certainly should not be doing 600,000 student visas for Chinese to prop up the universities. That's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. They keep getting behind. We should let these universities fail, too, because they are not serving America's interests. Then these are creating all these little communist blue-haired moonbats you see chasing ICE agents around right now. So if we don't address the root of the problem, it will never change. Trump did just sign an executive order banning birth tourism again. I don't expect that to stand the challenge. That'll probably get slapped down again since we just had a Supreme Court case on it. Now maybe they'll put some rules in to arrest and destroy the companies that are doing this, as they should. But, again, I just don't see this being effective. We're about out of time, so we got to wrap things up here because I know you got to go. So I guess we'll bring up this story here. Minnesota town has all 8 of its flock cameras cut down and stolen overnight. Maybe your local city council should get the message, but I think a lot of them are being paid off. In Cleveland, they voted to remove the cameras. Flock put pressure on their police chief and a number of other people. And guess what? Now they're doing another vote on it. Now maybe that first vote to remove the Flock cameras, where they voted to remove them, now Cleveland's like, oh, maybe we should reconsider. There's other sides we didn't properly give the time to. I don't even remember what the lady said now, but this is insane. The American people on both sides of the political spectrum clearly do not want this invasion of privacy. And you know what? Actually, go ahead and, if you could, Andrew, respond. And I got a video I want to play for you real fast, and then we'll wrap things up.
Well, the thing with Flock that people need to understand is these aren't license plate readers. They're surveillance cameras. They have gunshot technology baked into them. They can geolocate where a gunshot is fired based on the cameras and their microphones. They have Flock Alpha, these new drones they're launching. They have Flock Freeform, their AI brain that they process all this data through. They're not license plate cameras. They are surveillance cameras. They're pointed at schools. They're pointed at gun shops. They're pointed at subdivisions. They are spying on you. They are watching you. This is a public-private partnership. It's a national company that is doing public-private partnerships. Anybody can access the data for the right price. God only knows who has it. It is a complete violation of privacy. Anybody who tells you that it's safe and secure is lying to you. Anybody who tells you it's locally controlled is lying to you. There have been multiple abuses of this where sheriffs and sheriff deputies are spying on their exes or spying on individuals in their towns or jurisdictions using these cameras. They are a tool from hell. It is 1984. People call it pre-surveillance. I call it surveillance. I don't know how it's an entry to surveillance. I think it's just already that. So would I go and cut one down myself? Probably not, because I don't want to spend the night in jail. And I don't want to commit a felony. However, as I see them come down, I smile, and I think it sends a good message. So I'm not going to tell people to stop, but I'm not going to tell them to do it either.
Well, I think this guy in this video I'm about to play has the right idea. Let's run this, get your response.
To announce a new company called Shepherd Safety. We're launching satellites to watch over Casa Grande day and night. Our AI will monitor where government officials go, where they stop, who they meet with, and when they return home. We've already started collecting and building profiles on your vehicles, spouses' vehicles, children's vehicles, and other visual characteristics. We'll combine that information with publicly available data, Bluetooth signals, advertising IDs, vehicle information, commercial data sources. There's no difference than the current flock safety capture systems. Local businesses will be invited to join our network so government officials can continue being protected while shopping, eating, or traveling throughout the city. Some of you might think this sounds invasive, and you may worry about abuse, you may worry about unauthorized access, tracking innocent people. We understand those concerns. After all, those are the exact same concerns of all the citizens. Now, this is satire.
He has exactly the right idea. And I think this is what we honestly need to do is I think we should start buying data from Flock itself and posting the locations of politicians and their family. Now, we want to delay it, maybe 72 hours, so it's not considered doxing or stalking or anything else, but put them in a spotlight. Put them in a position where if they vote for this, well, then they must want it. So they can't have any objections if we're doing it to them, too. So I think that's the only solution. Otherwise, these companies, unfortunately, have deep pockets. It's easy to buy votes. Too many of our politicians are to have share this flexible morality. And this is the only solution, is to make them the target of the invasion of privacy. And then maybe some of them will understand. I think we'd also learn a lot about them, like, what their activities are, what else they're doing in their off hours that we should all be made aware of.
Yeah, exactly. I love the satire of it. I love the idea of the flipping of the script, because I can imagine being the city council person or whatever. It seemed like it was a city council meeting. Sitting there being like, "Oh my gosh, this guy's a domestic terrorist."
Yeah, that's what they'd call him.
And yet it's the exact same thing they're doing to us. So, yeah, a little taste of their own medicine, but that's exactly what it is. And it should be treated as such. And, I really do think this issue is a, true bipartisan issue. Get to use the B word in a nice way. The bipartisan issue. I think that Republicans and Democrats alike, at least locally speaking, not federally speaking, are against this. Some of them for different reasons. The left doesn't like it because of the whole, ICE thing, and I think they're using flocks to catch illegal. But hey, if we can unite to take down Flock, I'm a little bit of a pragmatist when it comes to that, and I say bring it on.
Yeah, well, the scary part is I guess there's already 2 other companies popping up to take Flock's place. I'll get you some information. Since I know you've been following that story, I'll get some stuff to you here later today. Andrew, any words of wisdom you want to leave the audience with here today?
Yes. I think that we're going to win this war to save America with words. I believe that the words are the most powerful tools we have. And people think, oh, that's cringy. Oh my gosh, I've heard that a million times. And it's not an original thought, but I do think it is true that civilizations come and go. But how do we remember them? How do we remember what happened in Athens? And how do we remember what happened in Rome? And how do we remember what happened in Jerusalem and all these different places? It's not by what they built. It's not by even necessarily their failures or successes. It's by their words. We read their words. We read Plato. We read Socrates. We read Marcus Aurelius. We read Homer. We read the Gospels. And we see in that ideas and virtues and lessons. And that is what we need to do. We need to become a country that becomes articulate again, that debates, that discusses ideas, that challenges one another. Our enemies are good at this. Our enemies are good at this. At the Council on Foreign Relations, the United Nations, and the Bilderberg Group, and the Bohemian Club, and all these different groups that are working against national sovereignty, they talk, they debate, they plan, they scheme. They're smart. We scroll on Facebook and get angry and either put a shock emoji, an angry emoji, or a heart emoji based on how we feel seeing that. We need to organize. We need to get involved. We need to speak to one another. We need to write. We need to read. We need to get educated. We need to become elite human capital in the fight against tyranny. And we need to start that with education. That's why I'm saying this. Educate yourself. Educate yourself and then articulate that to somebody else. Don't get intimidated and think, oh, I don't know anything. Read just something. Read the law by Bastille. Read the Constitution. Read the Declaration of Independence. There's so many short things you can read to get involved and start to educate yourself and then talk about it with somebody. And I think if we do that, it will create a tidal wave. It'll create a movement of people that not only have opinions, but know what those opinions are and can articulate them and debate them with others. And when you put those two things together, an emotion and a belief with a articulate, educated take, you have something magical. And I think that if we do that, we can save the country.
Well said. You're exactly right. We can live up to the dream the our founding fathers had. America can live up to his ideals. We can make America not just great again, but even greater than it ever was before. We can continue to be that beacon of light of freedom, that shining city on a hill. But it is going to take effort from all of us. It takes great sacrifice to achieve greatness. We need more people doing all they can and doing even more than they do now. We want to save this nation and save our freedom. So, Andrew, thank you again for joining us today. To our audience, thank you for being here. Please like, share, and subscribe. Oh, quick message before we go. Last night we had an issue with Behind Enemy Lines with streaming Terry and I's program in the evening. So it will be running tonight at the usual time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central. Great interview. We had Dr. Alveda King on. We talked about the SPLC funding literal hate groups in the U.S. and putting her on their list as a apparent white supremacist, and her getting put on terror watch lists and other things. It's a great episode, guys. It was pre-recorded anyway, but we had a internet meltdown here where I live yesterday. The whole neighborhood went out right about the time I was going to load it and stream it. So anyway, thank you guys for being here with us. Please like, share, and subscribe. Help us to grow so we can bring more people to the news the mainstream media doesn't want you to hear. And I'll be back.